Welcome to howtorunahomedaycare.com. Today's episode is all about our November nature table. So this month we are making a felt gnome for our nature table. Right now the days are getting shorter and the nights are getting longer and the sunlight is dwindling. So we tell a story at the nature table in November about a little gnome who is a little bit worried about the coming darkness, and so he asks Brother Wind what he should do, and Brother Wind tells him that he needs to go and make a little house for one of the last one of the last rays of sun. So he goes and he makes his little house for his little spark of sunlight, which is a lantern. So he makes a lantern. And then he asks the sun for one of its last rays, one of its last autumn rays. And he puts his little sun ray into his lamp and he keeps it close to him all winter long. And that's symbolic, fueling the inner spark of each of the children. So we are preparing for our lantern walk, which we do outside. And so the nature table is reflected of, we're preparing for our lantern walk. And so the gnomes are preparing for their lantern walk as well. So I have a couple gnomes for you, a couple different varieties, and I'm going to show you today how to make one. First thing you need is some felt. I already cut it out in the shape of the gnome. So it's about, it's approximate, it doesn't matter if it's exact. It's 11 centimeters this way and 10 centimeters this way. And when you fold it, it needs to meet itself because that's how the gnome is going to end up. So there's your shape, your rectangle on the bottom and sort of your triangle on top. So you need your felt in whatever color you'd like. And then you need some embroidery floss as well. And darning needle. I find the big ones are easier. And you need some fleece for stuffing your gnome. Sometimes people, instead of using fleece, they use a wooden peg. You can buy them at a craft store with a little round part on top over the head. Or sometimes I even had a friend who she would knit a little like sort of washcloth shape and then she would stuff it in. So it's up to you. Let's get started. Grab your needle and your embroidery floss, about this much, about an arm span. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to do his little tie. See his little tie and his collar? This is the first step. So what you're going to do with your needle is you're going to poke it in and you're going to do a running stitch all the way along because eventually we will gather this at the end and it will cinch it and it will be his little collar. It will form the neck to give his body a little bit of shape. So there's your running stitch. And leave a little end so you have something to tie and a little end on this side. There. About that much. There you go. Then I'm just going to add a knot to the end of my thread. These are really easy to do. My 6-year-old daughter was watching me make the gnomes for the nature table and she wanted to do one as well. So she made a gnome and it looks like one of those. So that's why we had to have a pink gnome because I was trying to go in autumn colors, but it needed to be pink, so that's okay too. So you have your gnome piece and now you're going to fold it in half. And you're going to start way at the very top of his hat and bring your embroidery floss through with the knot right in there because we're going to hide that knot so people can't see it. Now we do a blanket stitch, and if you're not sure what that is, you're going to pinch your hat together and you're going to come up with your needle, up, 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 But just before, like normally you would pull it tight, you're going to leave your little loop. And what you're going to do is you're going to bring your needle up through that loop, like that. See how it's going up? Because it forms when you pull it. See the little knot it forms? It forms a little knot there. And eventually, if you do all of them, not all the way down. So we're going to do it all the way down to the right end of his cap. So you can watch me do 2 more stitches, and then I'll shut off the video and I'll finish them off. So you're pinching your 2 pieces of felt together, and then with your needle you're going to come up, or you can go down, it doesn't really matter. But you have to come up and pull it, and then before you pull it tight, see how there's that loop? You're going to go up again into the little loop, and that creates the knot. There's the knot. You don't need to do a blanket stitch. You could just do a normal stitch if you wanted to. But this is the way that I was taught, so this is how I'm showing you. So I'm going to finish, I'm going to keep going with my blanket stitch all the way to the end, and then underneath I'm going to tie a little knot so you can't see it. Okay, so you finished your blanket stitch for the peak of the gnome's hat. You went all the way down to the end, and then you tied a little knot on the inside so it will be hidden once. See the little knot? You tied it off really nice and tight so it will be hidden once he's got his hat on. Great! So now you're ready for the next step. We're going to sew together his cloak. So bring the sides together of his cloak, and you have your thread from your running stitch from your collar, and what you're going to do is just fold those guys down so they get out of the way, so you don't get confused with your new stitching. Okay, so you're going to start right where your running stitch is for your tie, and we're going to blanket stitch all the way to the bottom. So first, sneak your needle in there on the inside, so the knot that you tied at the end, right there, see that knot? So it's hidden inside so no one can see it. So now you've got your, just poke it in, your knot hidden inside, and you're going to go through and we're doing a blanket stitch. So before we pull it tight, we're going to put our needle up through the hole, and then you're going to pull it tight, and there's your first stitch. And here comes another one, up, and pull, there you go. And then we're going to keep going all the way down. To finish off his cloak. I'm just going to do it quickly here. Sometimes when you first start the blanket stitch, you can get really tangled. But once you get into the rhythm, you'll be fine. It'll be very quick and easy. And these gnomes are sort of addictive, as you can see. I've made quite a few. And children really like playing with them. They're sturdy. And because I'm trying to go fast, I don't know, I just tangled myself. Yeah. So, need a second. Aha, there we go. If you ever do get tangled, as my daughter did quite a few times, just backtrack. So see where your thread is and follow it back, whatever path you took. There, we're back to the beginning again. And then once you reach the bottom, you're going to do the same thing as before. Now hide it underneath the bottom of the cloak. You'll tie a little knot right in there. I'm just going to zip around onto the inside and tie a little knot to finish it off. And then I'll show you how to wind your sheep's wool roving to make a nice smooth face. Well, face surface They don't have faces. I'm just going to cut off the end of the thread, super close, and then it'll be tucked under. No one will ever see it. Ta-da! So now we're ready to cinch his little collar, like that a little bit. Cinch it like that, and then I'm just going to tie a bow. So go ahead and tie your bows. Before you tie the bow, when you put your string through, like this, before you tie normal bow, put it through again one more time, and that will really hold the collar closed if your bow slips. There we go. Ta-da. And you're going to take your sheep's wool, arrange it so it's into a long shape, and just wind some of it around your finger, and that nice smooth finish right there is going to be your face. So you got it around your finger, I'm just going to poke it up through the bottom of his cloak, all the way. I'll try to do this backwards. Oh, I can't do it backwards, sorry. Just working it up because I'm trying to get that nice flat surface for his face. Aha, here it comes. It's looking good. Ta-da, it's in. And I had a little too much, so I'm gonna pull it off. And tuck the bottom up all around. And I think I'm gonna cut off this little end to his tie. There he is! So easy, so quick. Now, if you scan down to my other little guys here, they have lanterns because of course they're going on their lantern walk. So all we did was we went outside and we found a little stick. We clipped it off and we took a yellow piece of felt in a rectangular shape. And then I also cut out a little circle for the bottom of the lantern. Here, I'll show you with this one. So it's just a rectangular shape that I rolled up, and then a little circle for the bottom. And I used that same blanket stitch all the way around, and I put a little blanket stitch on the very top of the lantern just to make it match the bottom. And then I added a little handle, and I glued it onto the stick, and then I poked the stick into his cloak, and that's how he's holding it. And if you're interested as well, this guy at the end, this orange dude here, I teased out a little beard for him. So you can take a little bit more sheep's wool, and you can attach onto the front of his face, and then tuck it down into his cloak, and then just with a pair of scissors or with the needle, kind of pull it out as much as you can, tease it until you're happy with what it looks like. And if it didn't turn out, just stick it back in. I mean, beard. But those are some variations that we did with the children. Thanks for joining me in howtorunahomedaycare.com.